and welcome to the first inaugural episode of Ventura Voices. I'm Heather Sumagaysay, and I'm here to bring you the latest news and events of what's happening in the city. Welcome to our first ever episode. This is a new podcast designed specifically for our residents. We know there's a lot of ways to get information in the city, and we want to make sure that you stay up to date with what's happening with hot topic issues, large initiatives, events, fun programs, as well as feel connected to our community leaders and the wonderful men and women who serve you at the City of Ventura. And with that, I'd like to kick us off immediately into our first amazing special guest, our very own city manager, Bill Ayub.
Well, thank you, Heather. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here, Bill, especially because you just finished, you surpassed your half a year with the city, and you have already done some really great things in Ventura.
Well, I'd like to think that our staff has done some really great things. I'm honored to be here in this role, and I was born and raised in Ventura a very long time ago, and to be able to serve it in this way is kind of a dream come true for me.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm curious, because a lot of folks might know you as the former sheriff at the county. What interested you in pursuing this job as a city manager?
Yeah, so I spent a career in law enforcement, which some people, casual observers might think, well, that's a long way away from city management. It's a piece of what the city or the county does, part of a government service. But for me, especially getting to the higher levels in law enforcement, it became about leading people and managing resources and kind of uplifting communities in a way that is just rewarding and satisfying and reminds me of the reason I got into public service to begin with. So when I retired from county service, I did a lot of the things that we all put off for many years, cleaning the house and painting baseboards and things like that, and decided I wasn't done with my life of service. And this opportunity to work for the city presented itself, and fortunately for me at least, I was selected to fill this role. And so it's a thrill for me to do it.
And I have the joy of working with you almost on the daily, right out of our city manager's office. And it has been really nice to work with you, learn from you, and then also see what you're building here. And when I say building, tell us about the leadership team that you're building in Ventura.
Sure. So we have a young leadership team, and which is great. A very talented group of people. I've had the opportunity to fill a number of those positions since I've arrived. We had some retirements, some departures for other reasons. In some cases, positions were just vacant. And I'm really excited over the quality and dedication and just the depth of character of the employees that we've been able to hire for those roles. I'm super optimistic about the future. I think we're going to do just some wonderful things for this community. There's a lot of opportunities in front of us, as I'm sure we'll talk about, and that any viewer or listener knows. And we're all just ready to roll up our sleeves and dig in.
So I have now done just about 19 years in public service, and after all the organizations I've worked for, there is no shortage of large initiatives underway in Ventura. So we're definitely doing a lot of great things. I know the community will have a lot of questions. And that's one of the great things about Ventura Voices, is we'll have a chance to go a little bit more in depth with people on those topics. Speaking of your leadership team, Bill, can you tell us about your leadership style? And as someone who leads a just shy of 400 full-time employees, $400 million general fund, what do we have? How many full-time employees?
700.
700, that's right. Police, fire, water, we do it all in Ventura.
Yeah.
What is your leadership style that you most are looking for when you want to set that tone for the organization?
Yeah, great question. And it's an interesting thing. You mentioned all the different types of employees we have, and 700 employees, many volunteers and contractors. We are a full-service city. We have a water utility. We have our own parks and recreation. We have our own police and our own fire. We have, everywhere from people that maintain our sewers and cut trees and mow lawns to scientists and engineers who are highly accredited professionals. And so there's a broad range of employees. All of them have different things that motivate them. We have generational differences across the city in our workforce. And so there's no one size fits all management tool or leadership tool for a workforce that size. There's different things that inspire people to do well. Some are self-motivated, we love those kind. Others require something more. Mm-hmm. And I think the most important thing is to maintain an open mind, maintain accessibility, communicate well and often, and make sure that the employees have a place where they feel supported, they feel empowered to do their work. The employees I mostly interact with are at the executive level, the department heads, managers of divisions and departments. And I like to give them the opportunity to learn and to grow, in some cases to make mistakes, because I found that sometimes your greatest lessons are learned from those mistakes. And so while I, of course, want great outcomes, I want to grow leaders and grow employees so that we have a succession plan within the organization so that we are strong and resilient, and so that we give this community what it deserves, and that's outstanding service.
Mm-hmm. You know, when you talk about outstanding service, one of the things that the council does every year is a goal setting session, just about in January, February every year. And that session, for those in the community that might not know, what is that kind of sets the tone and the pace and the focus on what we look to do throughout the city. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the city can expect from this year's City Council goal setting session and how that will impact our operations? Yeah,
so the City Council is the city's governing body. They're a group of individuals elected from districts, 7 districts within the city. We have a mayor who serves a 2-year term and is elected by the other council members. And so I work for that elected body. And I also work for you and for the public and everyone in Ventura, right? So the council establishes at least currently establishes goals annually. And they try and make goals that are achievable. And so if you think about, 1 year sounds like quite a bit of time. When it comes to a meaningful initiative, it's not a lot of time, especially in government work. There's bureaucracies and other things that just make things move a little slower. And so when we went into our goal setting session this year, one of our objectives was to, one, not add too much to the city employees' work plate, if you will. There were a lot of unfinished goals from the prior 2 years, and even years before that. And so kind of central to the conversation was that we already have a lot of things that are still relevant, still important, that we're working toward. And let's find something that is manageable, reasonable, measurable, and something that we can really do. So the council added 6 new goals this year. One was to explore financial opportunities for the city, look at ways of generating revenues or saving dollars so that we have more dollars to invest in core services like paving our streets and making our parks nice. Another was to explore tenant protections. We've heard a lot from the community of people who rent and who feel that they have not been well represented at the city level in terms of support when the relationship between the renter and the landlord doesn't go well. So there's a bit of a gap there. And then, and so we'll do that for the City Council. We'll explore what tenant protections could look like for the city. It's not to say that they're going to adopt any of those or all of them, but it's an opportunity for them to have kind of a deep dive there. Another opportunity for that the council wanted us to look at was related to our, and yeah, I know you have the list in front of you.
Yeah.
So please help me.
Let me help you.
Yeah, thanks.
You've done a really good job of recalling a lot of these. So there was review and make recommendations on the organizational structure for homeless efforts. Right. And that, you talk about, that's another goal that was identified this year, but that has also been an ongoing goal. So when you talk about those that aren't achieved in a year, there's been considerable progress made in the years prior and continuing to keep a focus on that, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah, homeless initiatives are the giant problem within the state of within the country, really, that is seemingly growing, and with no end in sight. We've spent a lot of dollars at the federal and state level, yet the problem continues to grow. And so locally, how are we investing our few dollars wisely to address the local challenges? And Ventura has always had challenges with a homeless population. We have a moderate climate, we have an easygoing public. It's a great place to be homeless if you happen to find yourself in that lifestyle. We have a team of professionals here currently in the Community Development Department that focuses on homeless related issues and how they intersect with housing mostly. And so that team of people, and I think we'll talk about this later, looks at ways of helping people get out of homelessness. And so the council asked for us to sort of take a look at this program, make sure it's staffed properly, make sure it's being managed in the right place within the agency, within the organization. And so that's something we'll do. And in that same vein, they also directed us to take a look at environmental sustainability. And so that's a subset of our Public Works Department presently. There's a lot of things that are really relevant and happening in environmental sustainability, solar initiatives, composting, mulching, a lot of things that are really interesting to our community and relevant to climate change. And so the same kind of direction from council was given as a goal to look at environmental sustainability. Is it adequately staffed? Are they on the right mission? Are they in the right place within the agency or within the city structure? And so that's something else that we'll do as well.
Yeah, and related to that goal, they also mentioned climate mitigation and decarbonization, something we'll explore just a little bit further in our interview. And then finally, I also have here as one of those goals, it was educate the council on surplus property process and options for a potential community benefit. Can you expand upon what that means?
Sure. The city is a large property holder. We own streets and parcels throughout the city.
Part of the beach?
Part of the beach. Yes, we're a big property holder. Some of that property is not being used really. We have some lands that are leased to farmers, for example, and to others. And so there was a direction by council given to take a look at surplus property and and identify whether we need to maintain it as part of the city's property holdings, or could it be sold to generate revenue to offset costs for something else that's pressing throughout the community, or could it be used in a way that would benefit the community, for example, as a park? Or some sort of needed
housing,
infrastructure.
Economic development.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at different opportunities of what could it be.
Yeah, we're talking about homelessness, for example. There's an idea of partnering with community organizations such as nonprofit organizations, the Housing Authority, to build a non-congregate, supportive housing for the homeless population, maybe a tiny home project or something like that. And so the council wants to know what their options are. And so that's what we aim to give them. We'll give them an accounting of surplus properties, and then that will stoke further discussion about the value of hanging on to those properties or repurposing them in a different way, perhaps through a lease that generates revenue for the city.
One of the fascinating changes that came out of this past year's goal setting session, which if the community ever wants to check in with those meetings or any public meetings, they can always go to our YouTube channel. It's a wonderful resource where people can go back for a collection of videos, including this one. But a really interesting thing that came out of this year's, in comparison to years past, is moving to a 2-year cycle moving forward. So can you expand on what that means for the community in terms of moving to a 2-year cycle versus a 1?
Yeah, and that's you and I have had conversations about this. Yeah. In fact, ideally, perhaps even moving to a 5-year, strategic plan with meaty, meaningful goals for the city council. Going back to the 1-year thing, it's hard to find a meaningful task, and it boils down to a task list to be done within that 1 year period, so we can report back and say, yes, we've accomplished this goal. What are your next goals, council? This next time around, when we meet in January, February, perhaps even March of 25, we will have a 2-year cycle where
we're looking at SMART goals more.
Yeah.
More sort of, hey, how can we make them specific, measurable, attainable,
yeah,
realistic,
exactly.
timely?
Exactly. I think, and having conversations with the city council privately, I think there would be a desire to have a more of a longer range type of program or document, if you will, one that can be adjusted annually. We meet annually and we talk about the ongoing goals, what our progress has been, and then perhaps add to or even remove from the goal list, the strategic goal plan. Each year, I think, is something that's reasonable and would be a good exercise for the council.
One of the things I also like about the city's goal setting process is outside of the meeting itself, it is also informed by series of meetings throughout the year, engagements with the community on a variety of different levels. And each of the council members, we have 7, each are district elections, and we're going into an election year this year, but they are connected to their constituents. And I think Ventura is really unique in that we have a really engaged community who's very participative in public processes and shows up at community council meetings. Is that something that you think is more unique to our city?
I think it's
when you talk to like other city managers?
Yeah, and I've worked in other cities in my service to the county, many different cities, and Ventura has an extremely engaged and intelligent community. They care about the city. They come out and they speak their mind. And
we're very close-knit. We are very tight here.
Yeah, and it's super valuable because you just learn something from that contribution from the community. If you live in a bedroom community where everybody works and they're exhausted and they don't come in and they just they grumble after the elected body makes a decision because they didn't have the opportunity to weigh in or it wasn't important to them. We don't have that here. We have a very good sense of where the community's at on issues that come before the city council, and that's a great way. That's a great way to govern. In this community in this country, we govern based on support of the community, and that's a great thing.
To expand on that even, one of the things I also really appreciate about the city is it has really leaned into technology in recent years, also came out of prior year goal setting sessions. We'll talk a little bit more on that in terms of what's coming next, but as a part of that engagement, public participation process, we really have gone above and beyond to try and meet people where they're at, making sure we're live streaming meetings, city council meetings, you can call in and participate online, just making sure that people have access to information and can take it on their phone, on the go with them, and feel engaged, even if they're not here during the council meeting.
Yeah, it speaks to what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We want to get information out to the community in whatever form they're willing to receive it.
Yeah.
And we speak on the radio on Thursday mornings on KVTA. We have virtual check-in for the council meetings. A lot of communities did away with it when we had, several months ago, we had some obscene callers calling in and really pushing their First Amendment rights with hate speech and vile language. And many cities cut off their virtual communication.
Yeah.
And so that blocked an avenue for the public, the public that means well, to call in and contribute to the council or board of supervisors conversation. We didn't do that here, and central to that conversation was our desire to maintain as much opportunity for the public to connect with us as possible. And I'm really proud of that. I think that's great.
Speaking of being proud, that also extends to live Spanish interpretation services offered during council meetings. You don't have to ask for it, you don't have to schedule it, it's here. And we will meet people where they're at in terms of we want to make sure that they feel a part of the process and can get engaged and share their opinion too.
Yeah, we have a large segment of the community that's Spanish speaking, so that's a great point. Thanks for mentioning that.
Okay, so now technology, since we're on that topic, can you share some of the fun initiatives underway? I know maybe in years past, Ventura wasn't known as the most technology savvy city, but through the creation of the information technology department, through our IT department, again, council goal many years ago, we now have made strategic investments that really this next year, I think the community is going to see the benefit of some of those investments coming even more full circle. Can you share with us what that looks like?
Yeah, we have a lot of great things going on in the technology world. And to your point, yes, Ventura is a little behind, having only established an IT department within the last 3 years.
Gosh, something like that, 2-3 years.
Yeah, very different from.
But you know what? I don't care. Watch out. Like,
all good.
Get ready. We're going to take it.
We're making up for lost time. We've got an enterprise resource planning suite coming online July 1st. An ERP, what that does is it creates efficiencies in human resources and finance, two major components of the city's business, and allows us to be more efficient, more precise, have information available to our staff for better decision making. A really exciting upgrade, largely impacting internal operations within the city, but in the long run we'll save dollars, probably through eliminating some staffing over time, and then also the improved processes free up staff time to do more with what we have. We have Comcate that's coming online as well, which is going to allow the public to communicate to various departments within the city based on what the need is. And it's an opportunity to report a pothole and to send a picture and a GPS location of this pothole right to the team that fills those things.
I'm really excited about that one. And for those who might not know what Comcate is, we also call it My Ventura Access, is what you could access on our current website when you go to submit a city request or a report. And it is a 15-plus-year-old system now. And really, that is a new investment that's coming because we recognize the need to adopt 21st century technology, improve our customer service. And you're absolutely right. Now we're looking at, okay, now how do we do it with texting? How do we do it with GPS-enabled services? How do we make it less clicks? And that has been more than a year in the making now through all the different streamlining of processes that'll help feed that efficiency. So we can really provide better service that's more, helps people see where that request or report is at in the process.
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about. And, you know, we mentioned the recent formation of the IT department, but independent of that, the city has a fantastic communications team. Thank you very much. If you follow
Shout out to comms.
If you follow us on social media, it's great. There's regular content. It's interesting. It's informative. Our website is chock full of useful information. We're adding to it every day. We have some dashboards coming online.
We're really excited about those.
Super exciting way to share information about important things going on within the city. Things related to our police and fire service. The sky's the limit in terms of what we can report out on a dashboard or a heat map for the public to have a real clear understanding of what's happening in the city and how their taxpayer dollars are being spent.
And really help speak to transparency. It's a word we hear so frequently in public service.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And transparency also takes investment in how do we showcase that data in a way that people understand it and can access it easily.
Exactly true. We also, I want to mention that we have some changes happening in our building department. So
Community
the opportunity
development,
some instant permitting for smaller projects that are going on within the community. But also the ability to book appointments with all of the stakeholders on the city side that would be needed for a project approval. Ways in which we're streamlining that process so that we can get the building process done in a more efficient way. We've got really long delays that we're trying to overcome, and It's a common thing in communities, but it's something we're really committed to addressing and to improving here.
And that investment Ventura has been making for a couple of years now,
Yes.
and really building on it, which is great. Ventura Ops, the online permitting system, was the first pass at it, made during the pandemic. Hey, City Hall is closed. We had a paper process. Quick, we gotta jump online and meet customers where they're at. Well, now this is kind of that reinsurgence of the next level of it, making sure that we're going back, looking at how we can create better efficiencies interdepartmentally through that system, and then now online scheduling. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Through the public counter, you can now book appointments online, you can track it on your phone, you can also still come up to the public counter. But yeah, really making improvements so that we're better meeting our customers where they're at.
Yeah, and some smaller things that are less noticeable by the public. We have some broadband upgrades that are taking place around the city. Some connectivity that's happening that's exciting. I'm excited about it.
Me
I don't
too.
know about you, but I am.
Well, since we manage social media, we always have to access
Okay.
our accounts wherever we go. I'm
Perfect.
excited about that.
Right on.
Now, speaking of community development, tell us about the general plan and where that's at in the process and why something like that is so important to a community. And it's something that we've been doing for several years now.
So that's a great point. General plans are a major undertaking for a county or a city. They're very important. It's really a long-term roadmap for the future. Ventura's last general plan was established in 2005. And so they come around every 20 years or so. This meaning our general plan process is 3 years plus in right now. And this goes back to our community engagement and the interest of our community in being involved in decision making and weighing in. And there has been an extraordinary number of meetings held with the General Plan Advisory Committee, which is a collection of stakeholders from the community, the business community, the public at large, the city council, and it's led by a consultant who's an expert in general plan creation. And we are currently working towards a draft that we expect to be out towards the fall, so maybe September, October. It should be out to the public for review. I think our next meeting is coming up in just a couple of weeks, and it's on public safety.
Yeah.
I believe it's in mid-April. And I expect that that general plan draft will generate a lot of conversation. So,
As it has.
As it has,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of important things, land use and what it's going to look like, coastal protections, what that looks like. I mean, public safety, all these things are beefy, meaty topics, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of interest in that stuff, and rightfully so. And this is a 20-year document, so it's a costly endeavor, both in terms of dollars and resources, but I think it's going to be a terrific product when it's completed, and I'm excited about that.
And Ventura went the extra step in terms of attaching other elements to it to really try and hone in on a lot of the big long-range planning things that we're doing and making sure we're doing them cohesively for the benefit of the community citywide. Everything from active transportation plan, our general plan, which is land use based, and informs how we do economic development and housing and what parcels are, you talked about parcels that the city may want to do potentially something with. Well, they have to be zoned for those uses. General plans are where you can do that stuff.
Right, and we also have to comply with the state's housing requirements, and so that.
And that feeds into the state requirement. It is a state requirement.
Yeah, exactly. Climate Action Resiliency Plan is a component of our general plan as well, which you don't find in all general plans. That's an important document related to preserving the environment and lowering our emissions and cutting greenhouse gases and electrifying the community. And so that should be a really interesting and valuable component to our general plan when it's finalized.
That's another thing I really love, and I'm going to pull something up as we're talking about this, environmental sustainability. I love about our community is not only does it feel more like a neighborhood where everybody, kind of like the Cheers bar, right? Where everyone knows your name, the old show Cheers. but also we have such a love and a passion for our environment. We have a strong surf community, and everyone kind of has a forward-thinking focus on, well, how do we create a more sustainable community for future generations? And what I have here is our activity guide, so we'll share more about what the importance of this is. But on the back side of it, and this is our current summer activity guide, it talks about environmental sustainability and all the ways that they're investing in programs to protect the environment. Food waste recycling program, that's a state bill initiative, 1383, if anyone wants to know that number. It's about minimizing greenhouse gases for food waste and recycling. We have a green business program here. Green schools education program, I love this one. Last year they reached over 7,000 students. And then we do free compost and mulch at our cornucopious community gardens. And then we have EV charging. That's a new one that's coming. And then a city solar project. Do you want to tell it? The community may not know about that. Can you expand on what that is going to look like?
Yeah, we have a solar initiative underway right now. There's 3 sites that have been selected for the installation of solar panels. They're going to generate a significant amount of energy while also doing things like creating shade for vehicle parking and some other benefits. One site is at the City Hall. We're going to have some covered parking at City Hall with some solar panels on top of it. The other is at Community Park, also known as Kimball Park to many people in the community. A piece of land there will be used for solar panel installation, and then at our police and fire headquarters. So three sites, currently have a variety of uses within the city, and we're adding use to those sites with an electrification project that's I believe it's grant funded.
Yeah, coming right here is solar is coming to city facilities at no cost to the taxpayer, saving $3 million in electricity costs over the life. I think it's the life of the project, which is great.
Yeah. We just had another $1.5 million awarded to the city for EV charging project. So our biggest challenge now is figuring out where to put the EV chargers to benefit the community the most.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. We have a lot of cool things happening.
We do. And the if you are the activity guide, I just want to give a plug to my Parks and Rec folks. We put the activity guide out 3 times a year. It's always a great way to check out all the latest classes, including pickleball, the latest craze, but all the different programs offered for people of all ages. This is a great thing that the Parks and Rec team works really hard to do, as well as showcases all of our summer events. And then what I personally love also is in the back pages, we have some fun little city news updates, including a little update from yourself and the council goals. And in this, we talk about some of those fun initiatives that we've covered, including housing and homelessness. So do you want to chat about that one? Because we said we'd expand a little bit more on what is the city doing?
Yeah, well, first, going back to that guide, make no mistake that the city's communications team has a lot to do with that guide and how professional it looks when it's put together. It's something to be proud of, yeah. I think. And I just had my family over for a get-together over the weekend, and they were commenting on what a nice layout the guide has and how much information's in it. And
I love hearing that, and thank you, Bill. I'm also going to pay that compliment forward to the city has a great graphics team, and I think when you talk about the unsung heroes, the men and women of the city, there are a lot of unsung heroes throughout the Parks and Rec department that work really hard on getting good classes in here, connecting to good instructors, and then making sure the teams that build the guide have that information. So thank you.
It takes a team, for sure.
It does. This takes a village, it does. But this is some of the great fun stuff that we get to do.
Right on.
But talking about homelessness and housing,
sure.
And people can go to the guide, they can see more. We do have a housing services team. Again, another city council goal from a couple of years ago was to create a dedicated team to focus on this. But can you expand on what the city can expect or what the community can see this coming year and future years ahead?
Yeah, homelessness is probably next to our bumpy roads, the number one issue on the tips of tongues of residents in Ventura. The situation's been growing locally. We were up to close to 800 homeless individuals in the community at our point in time count. That number's been declining. We'd like to think it's because of our kind of multi-pronged, multifaceted approach to the homeless challenge. locally, and maybe it is, in part anyhow. I'll speak first about our police department. We have a patrol task force. It's 8 officers that focus primarily on the homeless population. There's certainly an enforcement element there, but this team largely works with the unhoused population that doesn't want to be housed, and they burrow into the watersheds and into the business communities, and they're generally petty offenders in the community. And so the police department team focuses on that element of the community, trying to reduce the crime associated with that element, and then they work really symbiotically with our housing services team and nonprofit organizations in the community, including the County of Ventura. We have backpack medicine that comes in and brings medicine to the unhoused population. We have food resources that are available. It really takes a village to address a problem that is almost unique to the individual. And that's why it's such a challenging problem to address. It's, what works for one person most definitely or most likely will not work for another person. And so it's this really creative, concerted, continuous effort to try and reduce that population through creating jobs, educational opportunities, supportive housing or support, some kind of support. We have a homelessness prevention program that involves providing bridge dollars to somebody who's had a life event that has suddenly put them in a position where they're on the brink of homelessness. And so it's not just reacting and responding to that problem in the community that we all see. It's the prevention side too that we're really invested in to keep a segment of our population that would otherwise become homeless from becoming homeless. And so it's a Herculean effort that we're going to continue doing as long as we have financial support to do it. And we're going to keep looking for ways to do it better, to be more successful.
And I know our housing team does a lot to work with also our community partners in this space. We also have the Housing Authority, the exciting project that our governor recognizes in terms of the La Quinta Inn, rehabilitation that'll go there to rehab that facility into affordable units with wraparound services. I don't even know, they're not affordable. It's a program.
It's permanent supportive housing.
And with wraparound services on site, which is a new approach to helping people get back on their feet and reacclimate. So everything from there to, gosh, you mentioned $4,000. I know, it's funny, I'm like, that's in the activity guide. I remember it in there. Our prevention and diversion program, $4,000 in rental and utility assistance for those who qualify. The inclusionary housing ordinance program, our IHO, if people hear that's a state requirement too. And so there's a variety of things underway, including the housing team consistently goes after community grants and federal grants on how we can also help assist that.
Right. We meeting myself and three of the council members went to Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago and spoke with our legislators, and the homelessness topic was high on the list. And we talked about our non-congregate housing and the need for that. So that would be, like I mentioned earlier, like a tiny homes project. And we may have an opportunity for something similar to that near the La Quinta on Victoria Avenue. So when you're looking at maximizing potential and opportunities, we have the supportive services already at the La Quinta. So co-locating another facility, if you will, near there makes a lot of sense from a resource management perspective.
And then also we have Mercy House too, another program.
We do, 55-bed housing shelter on Knoll Drive in Ventura.
I'm so glad you brought up visits like DC. I think one of the things, in my world, I do public information and communications for the city and lead a great team in that effort. But we hear sometimes jokes about, whoa, why do we need to go back to DC? And I think one of the things from my perspective that's so important to remind people is how important relationships are and how you start long-term conversations based on relationships when you can share openly, hey, what your challenges are, and see where there are opportunities to work across cities or throughout the county or partner with other efforts that are happening statewide or federally.
Yeah, relationships build trust.
Yeah.
It's not enough to call with a title and hope to have some action. You having a relationship where trust is established already, where there's some known quantities, it makes all the difference. It's a great investment in time. The small amount of resources in terms of cost to get the council members, myself there, I think will pay dividends. I know, this is not something new for the city, and I've done it for many years in my many years of public service. But the value, I don't believe can be overstated. I just think that there's dividends to be paid from taking that time to personally deliver a message that could have been delivered in a phone call or a note. It can make all the difference.
And also sometimes we go to conferences, I find what's so helpful too is it's also helpful to hear what's happening in other cities. How are they dealing with issues? It kind of helps expand even that creativity of how you look at the same problem from a different perspective or the same challenge or opportunity. I'm sure one of the things, just as we close out here, one of the hot topics I know that the community's talking a lot about, and you also brought back to DC, was Ventura Water Pure.
Sure.
Yeah. And that is definitely something that's a topic that's going to continue to be a part of our community, definitely in this year, in the coming years ahead. But can you just kind of share the importance of a trip like that for a project of that scale, and then what the community can expect to hear more of?
Yeah, so probably our top issue in our meetings and our conversations with legislators and federal officials was related to our Ventura Water Pure project. It's a very costly project, a very important project for community sustainability. We know we have a kind of a speculative water supply locally. We've had a couple good years of rain, which is great. Our aquifers are recharging, our reservoirs are near capacity. But we also know that we're in a region that's prone to long periods of drought. And those times are likely to come again. And what happens if and when the next drought is twice as long? Yeah. And we don't have state water currently, which is another topic of conversation, but that's also speculative as well. The delivery system is somewhat vulnerable to seismic activity, and so there's challenges there. The Water Pure project does, and I could talk for a long time about it, but it does a few things. It allows us to be better environmental stewards. The discharge that we have from our wastewater facility into the Santa Clara River estuary is out of current standards. It was within standards for the time that it was established. Today, we're polluters by today's standards. And so we've been ordered, in essence, to change where we discharge and what we discharge.
And how to do it, yeah.
So we've put in a big pipeline that goes underground and out a mile into the ocean. And so
Ocean Outfall Project,
the
right
Ocean
off
Outfall
of Marina
Project,
Park.
Marina Park, yes. And that project, that part of the project is wrapping up. And then we have a new treatment plant within the wastewater facility that needs to be built. The old one was built in the 50s. It's starting to fall apart. It needs, expensive restorative work if it were to stay in service, and even then it would only prolong the life for a short period. So the idea of building a new facility is more cost effective in the long term. And then the reuse piece of it. So the treated water that comes from that plant is not drinkable, it's not potable. So to get it in that condition, we need yet another treatment plant, treatment facility, a giant reverse osmosis, basically. That would take those millions of gallons of water, treat it to an ultra purified level, and then it would be injected into the ground. So it sounds expensive, it is. It's a costly thing, but it's a great way to protect our water supply for generations to come. This would create about 20% of Ventura's current water consumption needs.
I think a lot of people don't also realize in Ventura, we are unique in the fact that we rely primarily on our groundwater.
We do. We're sandwiched between two rivers and the ocean and mountains, so we rely on our reservoir at Lake Casitas for some of our water, and then mostly groundwater. And that supply, we've all heard about saltwater intrusion and the uncertainty of that water supply. And in my mind, the more certain our water supply is, the more comfortable I feel, and that this is a long-term place to live and raise families.
Higher quality drinking standards, safe, sustainable. We're talking about long-term generation, large-scale infrastructure projects.
Major infrastructure, probably the largest project in the county at this time, and leading edge, to be sure. Other communities have gone before us. So this is not new technology that's untested.
Las Virgenes recently.
Monterey, they're expanding their water pure project, and so it's a well-known, well-established methodology for treating wastewater, and it's something that this community needs, quite frankly. We've seen inflated costs related to building materials and labor, and that's largely what we've communicated to our federal partners, is that, hey, this is, these are big costs that are going to be borne by the taxpayer. How can we minimize this? Is there federal funding opportunities there to help us soften that to the local ratepayer? And I think there is. We made some really good inroads. Great meeting with the Bureau of Reclamation leadership, and that's a granting agency at the federal government, and they're very interested in our project and what we're doing, and they understand our challenges. So I think we've had dollars granted from them previously for this project. We have the opportunity for some significant grant funding as we move forward, and so hopefully our recent visit paved that way.
Large increases in costs, it's tough. It's tough, especially when we're looking at costs across the board for everything continue to go up, and that comes with a heavy burden, right? When we make these decisions. One of the things that I draw comfort from is really, when you talk about building relationships, is seeing the relationships that Ventura has built regionally, statewide, federally. The recent even press conferences that we've had with some of our top legislators, the Bureau of Reclamation folks. We definitely have built those roads to help tap into every available resource, and I know we'll continue to make those investments throughout the course of this project.
Absolutely, we have well-established relationships already, and our recent visit just cemented those.
And I know, so if this is a topic, sure, we could go off on, there's one more I want to ask you about before we wrap up, but if anyone is curious, don't worry, we'll get Gina from our Ventura Water team on the Ventura Voices podcast, and we can dive deeper into that as well as a lot of other water projects. But, last one, I'm looking down at my list, and maybe if you can sum it up into just kind of a final, hey, infrastructure, major projects on the horizon for Ventura. There are a couple of hot topics I hear a lot about: pier, parking, golf.
Sure.
And even if you want to throw in Main Street in there. But can you just kind of wrap us up with, hey, how can the community continue to be informed throughout these things? And then where do you see these parking, pier, golf, Main Street going?
Yeah, well, there's many ways for the community to stay informed. Social media is great. If you don't like that, come visit our website regularly. There's frequent updates there. You can listen to the morning show with Rich and Tom. Rich and Spence, I think he goes by.
That's KVTA.
Yeah, 7:45 KVTA on Thursday mornings. We give updates there. Of course, you can tune into city council meetings and listen in, or any of our commissions that weigh in on community affairs. I'll tell you, the pier's been closed since January of 23, where it was damaged in the winter storms. We got some more damage this last year.
I think 3.2 million in damages.
3.2 million. There's repair work underway. We're optimistic the pier will be open by summer of 24. So there's a crane out there on the pier right now. They're out there driving piles and putting bracings in and reinstalling all the hardware to get our beloved pier back in service. So that's exciting. Golf is a big topic. The Buena Ventura Golf Course has been closed since the same time. The floods of January of 23 just took over that course, plugged all the drainage, destroyed the buildings, golf carts, pro shop, I mean everything, the irrigation systems, drainage. So there's major costs involved with restoring that course. We're furiously working on a plan to improve the course's drainage. FEMA owes us a lot of money, we hope. That was another part of our recent visit to Washington, D.C. We want them to give us our costs back, but FEMA said, hey, we've given you money for this course before. You know, you can't just keep doing the same thing. We're not gonna support it in the future. And so we're working on engineering the drainage in such a way that it improves the course. So not only do we restore it and get it playable again, we actually improve the course, and hopefully it lasts as we go through this period of climate change and see potentially more flooding events. Olivas is another sticky subject as well. If you play golf, the course is great, the amenities are awful. And so we know that. We're working on new carts. Right now we have a plan to build an actual bathroom facility. They tore out the bathrooms and clubhouse back in the early 2000s. Build a pad to eventually build, hopefully it would have been at the same time, but build another clubhouse pro shop, and it's never happened. We have two portable buildings there, and the buildings are dilapidated and they're way beyond their useful life. Of course, we've extended them, and the golfing community is just fed up, and so there's a lot of conversation now about, you know, hey, let's finish what we started with Olivas. It had a great renovation and turned it into just a prime course. Let's put some amenities in so that the golfers really have a good experience. And so there's a lot of conversation there, and of course our roads. We have a lot of need for asphalt and paving throughout the city, and our council knows it. They're committing more dollars this year. They committed more last year. We actually ran the local materials supply out of asphalt last year. We paved so much.
I didn't know that.
But we have 700 miles of roadway, and that's a lot of paving, folks. So just be patient. We know there's holes and bumpy roads, and it's going to take a few years to get them to a point where they're in good repair throughout the town.
Another plug for the guide. The guide talks about that, and also talks about the long-term public works capital improvement project plan that has a component laid out with, hey, where are the large repaving projects outside of even potholes, such as Bristol, which
and
just happened.
information's online as well.
Yeah.
So if anybody's interested in seeing what we're doing or what we're planning to do, go to our website, take a look under the Public Works tab. There's all sorts of information there about planned projects, what's funded, what's not. Subject to change, but generally that's sort of the roadmap for us to follow, and we do our best to do that.
Well, Bill, we have covered a lot in, my goodness, what is almost an hour, and it felt like nothing. Thank you so much for being our first guest. Thank you for all the updates. I'm really impressed with the amount of numbers that you also just were able to call from memory. So I think you're doing good, Mr. City Manager.
Well, thank you, Heather. I appreciate the opportunity. I hope that folks tune in and listen and get to know their city's leadership team and hear about what's happening within the city. I think it's good for all of us.
All right, well, that'll take us away for our first episode. Thank you for joining us for Ventura Voices. Stay tuned, subscribe, check back. We'll keep coming back to you with more stories from our local leadership.